Today I'm at Lindholm Lakes and I'm on the biggest lake here on the complex, the Loco Lake. It's home to some really big fish. There's some carp up to maybe even 25 pound in this lake. But also, because it's a big lake, the F1s have grown very large, and I've had fish today up to 5, maybe even pushing 6 pound. These fish, once it starts to warm up, come in onto the ledges. And of course the days are starting to spread out and the fish now are patrolling on that ledge. Now whether they come in at spawning time or it's just because the fish have come out of the deeper water. In the past I found it quite difficult fishing on the slope close into the bank. This can be anywhere from sort of 3 to 5 metres, and often here the bottom is sloping away from you on lots of venues. And I've really struggled to get my head round this because what's happening with the bait under the water I didn't really understand, but I've put a lot of effort in to try to correct this. And this is what I want to explain to you in more detail today. To start the session, I've started off with a 150ml size Drennan large pot, and I've potted in just corn and 4ml pellets. But what I've done, once I've plumbed up, I found an area where I felt that the bottom was nice and sloping, and this was about 4 sections of my pole. But I haven't actually fed where I've actually plumbed up. What I've done, I've fed about half a metre back from where the float was going to finish up when I was fishing. And this is because I believe the bait starts to work its way down the ledge. Now, whether this is with fish activity or movement of the water on the lake, this bait starts to spread down the ledge. If you feed right on top of the float, the bait works away and you get less bites. And I'm convinced that feeding short and allowing the bait to work down the ledge is the best way to approach this short line. Plumbing up this line is also something that you need to get dead right. And all I've done, I've actually plumbed right on the joint. I've got a section almost behind where I'm fishing, and right on the joint I'm holding that joint in the same place just in front of the knee all the time, so I know that the float is exactly in the same place every time. To plumb up, what I've done, I've added quite a big flat plummet. This doesn't roll down the ledge, and I've dropped the plummet in and set it so I'm right underneath the pole. I'm set round about sort of 3 to 4 inch over depth. Now they say on commercials that you've got to fish at dead depth to catch any fish, but of course when you're sloping you can actually flick the bait out and allow it to come onto the ledge, so you can keep really tight to the hook bait even though you're fishing over depth as such. To make sure that the float is in line all the time, I've lined up with a marker on the other bank. Today I've used an electricity pylon. Don't use a cow or something or a car or anything that'll move. Just pick a fixed mark on the other bank. Where I've actually fished on the slope is about 6 foot deep. And here I've kindled also corn, so I've been feeding regularly with corn. But again, every time I've potted in about half a metre back. And then what I've done, I've actually flicked the rig out. And by doing this, the float and the corn and the hook bait, it settles down the ledge. Now it's also important to pick the right type of float to fish like this. And today I've used a Drennan diamond crystal float. This has got quite a heavy base to it of fiberglass, but quite a thick bristle at the top of it. It's a 2.5mm bristle. And because I've fished with big pieces of corn, I've selected almost the biggest piece of corn out of the box that I could put on the hook. And the reason for this is because there's been quite a lot of roach and also small hybrids present today, and I really wanted to ignore those and catch the bigger F1s. These diamond crystal floats are almost indestructible, and when you're catching big weights of fish, the last thing you want is the float to fall to bits while you're fishing in match conditions. There's 6 of these floats in the range from 0.3 right up to 1 gram. And today I've set up 2 rigs. I set up one that I fished with early on in the session when there was very, very little wind. I still backshotted this rig with 3 number 9s so I could keep tight above the float. But the float I selected to start with was just a 0.4 and a very, very simple block of shot and just 2 number 9 droppers. The second rig I set up is just in case the wind got up, and I set one up 0.6 with exactly the same type of shotting, just a block and 2 droppers, and then again the 3 number 9 back shots above the float. And this float was set up just in case the wind started to increase, which it did again today late on in the session. The hook that I've used a silverfish pellet, a Drennan silverfish pellet hook in a size 14. These are a fantastic hook for fishing with corn because they're slightly flattered, very, very strong but very fine. So the hook's light, but it also, because they're slightly flattered and forged, it cuts through the corn very well when you strike into a fish. One way to try and avoid these nuisance fish is to try to sneak the bait in. You'll have seen today me putting the pot on the water and just sprinkling the bait out of it rather than dropping it from a height and making noise. Of course, when them nuisance fish aren't there, throwing 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of corn can also attract the F1s, and it's up to you to find out how to feed the swim. What's great about our sport, even for me as a 5 times world champion, I'm still learning every single day that I go out. There's been a lot of small fish present today, lots of roach, lots of hybrids, and it has been imperative to fish with the biggest piece of corn on the hook. Now this is really unusual for F1s, and normally I've been sifting through a box of corn for the nice small pieces. But today I found that the biggest piece of corn was the best hook bait and the best way to avoid the small fish. Next time you're out fishing and fishing on a short line where the bottom's sloping, just remember to feed maybe half a metre back. It'll make a great difference to what you catch in the end. Today I've only used about 2 tins of corn and half a pint of 4mm pellets. It's a very cheap day out to catch maybe 100 pound of F1s what I've probably caught today during this session.